of IHL law, and then basically saying that HR obligations are not applicable or your own commitments. I mean, if a particular country has ratified the various human rights instruments, they will not be applicable on people who are targeting outside their own country, whereas if they were within their own state, those protections would apply. So I think it's an important point to keep in mind that human rights law is applicable if IHL is applicable. The applicability of IHL itself is an interesting question which I will get to, because the fact that IHL law might be applicable vis-a-vis a state and non-state actors residing within the same state, the classic case of a civil war, doesn't necessarily translate into IHL law being applicable when a third state attacks another state, people on its territory, non-state actors on its territory, and argue the applicability of IHL law because it applies between the state and its own citizens who are insurgents, belligerents, non-state actors, terrorists, however you qualify them. So, I mean, that's another important point. So, I will start off with the just as Dylan arguments and analyses. And with regards to just as Dylan, I would like to say that, you know, there have been, as pointed out by my colleague here, that the primary argument has sort of been based on the doctrine of self-defense, and as clearly outlined by him, you know, Article 51 and 2.4 are the relevant UN Charter provisions. And I mean, the argument, interestingly, that it's an argument that has employed not just the UN Charter, but principles of customary law, which I don't think were meant after the creation of the UN Charter to expand the right of self-defense, but rather to basically educate and constrain the right of self-defense once it's ongoing. So the requirements of self-defense in the Article 51 are as applicable as they were when the UN Charter was created, which requires the commission of an armed attack, which requires informing the UN Security Council that you are taking an action in self-defense, and that action is to end the moment, you know, the UN is in a position to deal with the matter. It's a transient right. And it is an inherent right, it's a transient right. Of course, this right is qualified, as I would say, by the requirement of necessity, proportionality, and immediacy under customary law, as outlined by Daniel Webster in the famous China incident. And what I see now is that arguments employing customary law pre-charter, which used customary law, which used the right of self-defense in a much more expansive fashion, are being used to justify drone strikes in various countries. And the classic example of this doctrine of unwilling and unable that has been employed by certain countries to argue that when certain states are unwilling or unable to act, that somehow at the other creates the necessity to act in self-defense. Again, I think that the requirements of self-defense and the Article 51 remain, and as well by the LCJ, on a number of occasions, a number of cases, citing the Bosnia case being the most recent, the Congo case and the Nicaragua case, you know, unless and until there is this level of state sponsorship, there is effective control as in Nicaragua, and even if you go with a much more you know, broad standard of the target data, overall control, those you know, requirements are not being met in particular, or in the case of drones. The other, I think, what has also happened is that countries that are employing drones are legally now trying to also use IHL law to a greater extent than just add them argument. So while I will be talking about IHL in a second, but we are combining as well with equal arguments, like arguing the doctrine of neutrality, which of course would not be applicable because neutrality applies in international, I mean, the doctrine is basically gone against you. Secondly, the doctrine is applicable in an international armed conflict, where the countries employing drones have argued for, I mean, the US particularly, have argued for being in a state of non-international armed conflict with non-state actors in a country they are not at war with. I mean, I'm using the case of Pakistan here. And the thing is that, you know, use that is not the understanding how a more international armed conflict works, and I'll get to that in a second. But so neutrality would work in a international armed conflict, and clearly the US and Pakistan are not in the international armed conflict under international law. And so to use neutrality and unwilling and unable, you see this trend of employing IHL as a justification the legality of drone strikes. The other thing is that, I mean, just quickly, and I'll move on to India in a second, that of course, when a state consents to certain actions on its own territory, then there's no violation of the territory. So where we are assuming the right. So this is an interesting discussion because I think nature, human rights law experts would beg to differ and would see certain rights vested in individuals rather than states. But however, having said that, I mean, that is the norm, that is the law, that states can consent to certain acts on the territory which will not be a violation of the territory. So very in this particular instance, if a state is consenting to drones being employed on its territory, it would make it not illegal. Again, the criticism is there, the alternative understanding is there. But Pakistan has held that Emerson, and I'm giving the case of Pakistan, has not ostensibly consented, or is not at this point ostensibly consenting to such action, which is indicated in the rapporteur's report. And secondly, private consent without, I mean, you have to also assess who is consenting. So if the government of the country which is not consenting, whereas there could be certain stakeholders who might consent, you look at within domestically what is the relevant authority that can consent. And sure, again, as I said, consistently in the last few years, at least in the case of Pakistan, from the foreign minister up to the highest level, to the army chief, who actually is not in a position to consent, but the prime minister and the president, as well as the foreign minister, as the proxy to the federal government, have clearly listed that they do not consent to drone strikes. And again, the last point being that you cannot consent to something that you can't do on your own territory, and if drones, whether as a weapon intrinsically or in terms of how they are used, will result in violations of peremptory norms, jus cogent, then you cannot consent to the employment, the use at all, because the state itself, where you're targeting sponsors that it cannot consent. So let me quickly, because I don't want to take too much time, I think there's lots of other stuff that I want to discuss. Move on to in the law. And I pointed out that both my colleagues previously, there are certain requirements of customary, both customary as well as written in the numerous Geneva Conventions and subsequently in addition protocols certain norms that have to be complied with under IHL law. One of military necessity, then there is distinction, then there's proportionality, and then there's humanity, which basically includes using, not causing excessive injury or unnecessary suffering. I will talk about them one by one, but just before I do that, just going back to the in-bellow discussion in Afghanistan, which was about the nature of the conflict in Pakistan, for instance. So in the case of Pakistan, it's very clear that there is no IAC or international armed conflict between the US and Taliban, because Taliban is not a high contracting party, right? So that is out. I mean, the only way that you can have a conflict is the Pakistan and US were in the national armed conflict. The argument about there being NIAC or non-international armed conflict between the United States and Taliban is also very weak, and in my eyes, not an argument at all, because, as I said, I understand NIAC to be applicable in a purely domestic civilian context of a civil war, and the threshold is basically, which has been clarified in the statute here, is meant to distinguish a NIAC from a transient sort of banditry or some sort of a insurrection which doesn't rise fulfill the threshold of a conflict to be classified as a non-international armed conflict. Now, the fact that there is no IAC between U.S. and Taliban is not something that I am saying, or IHL is saying. This is something that within the U.S. jurisprudence, in the London case, it was clearly rejected that there is no international armed conflict between, in that particular instance, the monster actor being Al-Qaeda in the U.S. And the applicability of Common Article 3, existing because it's a basic requirement in, I would say, in any context. I mean, this has been implied, this argument that the fact that Common Article 3 applies in the Pakistani Fata region is testament to the fact that there is an armed conflict in the first place. I don't see it like that. I don't see an armed conflict existing between the U.S. government and non-state actors under IHL exist. However, that doesn't mean that there is no applicability of Common Article 3 because it is that basic requirement that is meant to apply in all circumstances because under HR law, which is under international humanitarian human rights law, is to declare an emergency under ICCPR, for instance. Even in an emergency, certain rights are non-derogable, and those rights are qualified as well in the various advisory opinions available by the ICJ by IHL law. That doesn't mean that that's the fact that IHL law is applicable, or Common Article 3 is applicable. IHL law is applicable between a state and non-state actors in another state. And secondly, it doesn't mean that human rights protections are not available. So that I think is a very important point to keep in mind that, it could be the case that IHL law is applicable in Pakistan, and I think it is between governmental forces and non-state actors / terrorist insurgents in Pakistan. But just that applicability doesn't mean that human rights law is not applicable between the drones employed by the U.S. government or CIA against non-state actors or terrorists within Pakistan. Now, of course, the reason why I said it, I feel that there is good reason to believe that IHL law is applicable in Pakistan between Pakistani forces and insurgents or terrorists is because under the Tajik case, the requirements of what would qualify as a NIAC between government forces and insurgent forces are met, which is the intensity of the conflict as well as the organization of the party, which would mean the non-state actor itself, and of course it's embedded in a civil war context. So, drones have also utilized, for me, drones is also driving for a lot of countries what the law ought to be, and when they're trying to argue certain positions within the law or argue for the creation of new law or argue for the subversion or the manipulation of conventional IHL law to suit their technological convenience. So in this particular context, let's discuss that. Because one way that certain countries have argued for application of past IHL law in another form is by arguing that there is something called a transnational armed conflict, which is neither a non-international armed conflict or a national armed conflict, but an internationalized non-international armed conflict, a national armed conflict between non-state actors that are completely mobile, that can cross borders, and certain countries or a particular country, and hence they have employed, and I will get to this in a second, argued for an evolution of IHL principles, a distortion at times, I would think, of IHL constructs. Like, for example, which I think our colleague discussed, the notion of a global battlefield, right? There's, of course, in IHL you have zone of conflict, and now the argument is that we are in a global battlefield fighting terrorists everywhere in the world that they might be present, and we can target them everywhere that they might end up going to. So the other point is about go to the other point in a second. So let me just then move on to so the one thing that I want to discuss is that you cannot just use drones in this topic. There is, as I said, technology is sort of driving for certain countries as the law ought to be, and they're actually, we have to keep in mind that drones are something, I might differ with my colleague on one point, though, that drones are not here to stay. I feel that drones are perhaps here to stay, and the R&D that is going into drones and how drones are increasingly becoming automated. Like in terms of not just technologically, in terms of the flight pattern or the sophistication of the weapon itself, in terms of being more precise or accurate, but also in terms of decision making, in terms of assessing what is proportional, what is necessary. The problem is that as the more you rely on the machines to basically make these assessments, here you have what is known as, this dispersion of responsibility. Because then how do you assess when is the machine making a decision and when a human is making a decision and you're really dealing with qualitative assessment? Secondly, there is this dispersion of responsibility from the perspective of there might be a number of people involved. One could be a drone operator, the other could be someone who maintains drones and the satellite that sends the signal. So, and then, how do you assess who is responsible to what extent under IHL law? Then, of course, the problem is also accurately assessing, where the drones, what was the integral component of the drone that actually made the actual assessment eventually. And where was the drone off from, or where was the decision made? So it becomes very hard. It becomes like, digitalized to such an extent that you really can't ascribe responsibility. And in the IHL, there has always been one of the business of, integral business of, how do you punish violations of IHL, and there's a lot of discourse on it. And that also sends, that also acts as what's the word saying, prevents certain actions from happening because you know that you will be liable if you end up violating IHL law. Because it provides impunity to a number of actors. Of course, there's also the challenges, some of the challenges are also interesting in the sense that they would require a complete revision of IHL law itself. So, for example, a combatant, a lawful combatant, unlawful, whichever or not, which language is coming into being, which I already don't subscribe to, but a combatant itself is a human being. So, if you are increasingly mechanizing or automating machine, then can a machine be a combatant? Right? So, these are questions that IHL will have to deal with. If this process continues, then you have eventually a Terminator-like situation where all decisions are being made by machines. So coming back to the point about machines missing qualitative assessment, you have to realize that a lot of this qualitative assessment can never be made qualitatively because of the quantitative nature of machines. They will always be relying on quantity or algorithms. And as a consequence, as I see it, there are certain decisions that are clearly qualitative, right? So, for example, how much human life is collateral damage in light of the military advantage that you have in front of you? How do you make that assessment? So, we humans make it, and we like to believe that it is actually in light of circumstances and qualitative assessment. Now, if machines are making these assessments, they're going to rely on numerical valuation of life, they're going to rely on statistical averages, and again, it's going to be a very contextualized situation, which is what you see in drones, because, as I said, there could be cultural, sociological, perhaps practices that a machine at this point, and eventually I don't think even they can pick up, but at this point they cannot assess. So, for example, and this is important because these qualitative assessments, if made by machines through an algorithm, for instance, are invariably going to rely, and all they are measurable, on a completely Western and industrialized mode of assessing what is a threat and what isn't. As pointed out by my colleague in the part of region of Pakistan. A lot of people carry weapons. A lot of people have, most people carry weapons. Most people have beards. Most people culturally get together. And in ways that would to a Western audience, if you sort of use it as a factor, as a signaturing factor in your assessment, will be indicative of some sort of a terrorist activity, whereas it might in reality be a purely, harmless civilian event, right? So that is something that you need to keep in mind, and this is something that has been pointed out by many other economists who've worked on this one issue about social distancing, that when you're making decisions, when you're located somewhere thousands of miles away, and again, she also pointed out, as my colleague Professor Jha pointed out, the PlayStation mentality. There is this, tendency that when they know they can't be targeted, when they know that they are thousands of miles away, can have their coffee or tea after the event, they are not mentally in the context. They know that they are protected, so the decision making might be impacted and making you more happy. Now, again, this is something that evidence seems to indicate that I can't say this exclusively, but if the evidence seems to indicate that this is true.
Dr. Shah? We're running out of time, so I think you've given us enough food for thought, and we want to have participation by the audience, so we'll open up a question period. I just want to summarize some of what you said. The first thing is that you feel that drones are here to stay. You started your presentation by talking about the interplay between IHL and IHRL, and you also touched on whether state can consent to drones being used in its territory, which would violate the right to life of its citizens, and you didn't think that that was possible. But also you talked about the state's right to self-defense and whether that is applicable outside of its territory and outside of the immediacy of the attack that it's trying to contain. And then you talked about the legal framework and whether these conflicts going on qualify in terms of intensity and organization as armed conflict, and you touched about whether there's a new law that is necessary, and you talked about national armed conflict being the third type of conflict. You have international, you have non-international, and then national. And then you talked about the responsibility of the operators to respect IHL and what sanctions might be available for those who violate IHL, and the problem this would cause if there was automation where this proportionality calculation will be done by machines. So I think you covered a lot of ground, and I would like to thank you for your presentation.
You basically captured everything I said, and of course, as you mentioned, there's a lot that I think I can keep on talking, but there's one, if you can give me just 1 minute.
Okay.
There's a few, just if you can literally 1 minute, because I will start my presentation. I just want to talk about, that's one point that I think is important to bring up, which is that when we're looking at IHL, if you look at 8136, which is, this is something that I found quite interesting. There are certain methods of warfare which cannot be employed, right? So, I'm going to be very strong here and say, well, drones, here I'm going to say that landmines are illegal because they're indiscriminate. The question is, drones, whether they are indiscriminate right now only, or will they remain indiscriminate in light of this quantitative assessment, which invariably has to be qualitative. And the point that I want to make is, drones have to do signature strikes. Because the reason is, there is a human there. They have to rely on data and make those assessments, right? So invariably, inherently, they are going to generalize on data, which in itself makes me question the legality, not just as a platform itself. The other point is, this is literally like the second, which is a very interesting point, is that drones end up, they basically target people who cannot defend themselves. Because as I pointed out to my colleague, there's no way you can flee. They cannot give a warning. If they give a warning, then basically the efficacy of drone goes down. So, and that in itself makes it questionable. The people who are targeted cannot retaliate. Now, that is a very, very interesting point, because if you look at weapons that are prohibited, one reason is that it incapacitates you. By wronging you, are you able to defend yourself? Now, the question is, bullets might not be incapacitating you the same way tear gas does, but it does. You are incapable of defending yourself. So I should have to deal with this new sort of problem. In a situation where you are completely incapable of defending yourself, then weapons itself is illegal. So I mean, again, I would stop there. There's lots to talk about. I mean, you have such as the U.S. coming up with classification of civilians being unlawful enemy combatants and taking them out of DPH into actively engaging in hostilities, and the challenges that sort of calling them their associates, and so targeting people as much as widely as they can, and hence the military necessity going up, and other sort of, on the other side of the scale, the proportionality and the distinction requirements going down, the other way, actually, the military necessity being more heavier than the other qualifiers to military necessity. So, I mean, I think I will stop there, and perhaps we can move forward.
Thank you. Before I open up for questions, I just want to make one point that there has been arguments that drones are making militaries more accurate and are reducing the number of civilian casualties because they can stay overhead for longer, they can identify the targets. So this is another side of the argument. Now, let me open the floor for questions. I'll take 3 questions and then we'll answer those, and then I'll take a second set of 3. So just raise your hand and you have a question? Yes, sir. Just identify yourself, please.
Myself, P.K. Gupta. I'm just a student. My question is that this drone attack starts in 2001 and in Pakistan 2004. My memories say that almost 400 attacks in Pakistan, the casualty is almost more than 4,000. Children is almost died more than 2,000. I don't know how much injured and all. 5 countries or more than 5 countries heavily, majorly affected. Pakistan, Somalia, Yemen, Afghanistan and Palestine. You are absolutely right. Now my question is, any court in the law or any court in this world, on the earth, under any law, whether it is IHL, state law, customary law, domestic law, held or hold these Americans responsible for 3 violations. One is civilian or the children or women killing. Second, sovereignty violation. Second question is that, my second question to Secretary General of ALCO. As an ALCO, African, Asian country, these all things are happening in Asian and African. I am a normal human being. As a normal human being or as a frustration, can anybody can do something to this third country attacks on a human violations?
Okay,
That's
thank you, sir. Second question. Yes, Andy.
I just would like to say I cannot hear the question.
Okay, I
I
will repeat the questions for you.
Yeah.
I'm Sivila Anand from the ICRC. My question is to Wing Commander. When we look at these 2 weapon systems, what drones are doing today was till now being done by aircrafts, ICBMs, other remotely controlled weapon systems, including precision-guided munitions, and other weapon systems. There is nothing new in this. This weapon system is cheaper than the earlier ones, is more accurate than the earlier ones. What is the big difference is that the human lives of the attacker are being saved. They are being guarded. That is all. There is one major thing. If you look at the accuracy, I would see the drone is much more accurate because the pilot under battlefield stress conditions can make errors. But here, an operator sitting in air-conditioned environment can see the surroundings, then see the target, in fact, cancel the strike or pull back at last minute, which a pilot otherwise may not be able to do. So I think as people who are studying or examining this from the point of view of IHL, need to look at certain other conditions.
Okay.
This weapon system is as good as being turned by other, all legal obligations have to be met. But is there any specific reason, I'd like to ask the wing commander, where it is different from an aircraft?
Okay, thanks. One more, yes.
Thank you. My name is Parthan and I work for the Secretariat as a legal officer. As an addendum, actually, my question related very closely to what the Brigadier just said. But one of the additional, just to not repeat what he said, but as an addendum, is one of the things is that drone operators, for instance, while the nature of the stress that they undergo in operations, they work much longer hours than, for instance, a military pilot would, because of loiter times and whatnot, they may spend, much longer shifts. But the thing is that they also face, one of the things that they're finding is that they also face, in terms of stress, post-traumatic stress, they face similar, if not equal levels with actual combat pilots, but they also face a certain high level of stress which they did not expect, indicating sort of that they are not completely removed from the effects of their actions, that they are still tied to those actions. There is still stressful responses to certain actions which drone operators also face. So just like if Wing Commander Jha would get to comment on that, and that separation between a combat pilot and a drone operator not being as great as just, for instance, someone playing a video game with a completely stressful, stressless environment. And if I may, just one additional question to Professor Shah, because he said something very interesting about internationalized, non-international armed conflicts being a distortion of IHL principles. Whereas it, I mean, that seemed like a very interesting phrase to me. So if he can sort of elaborate on why he feels that that is a distortion of IHL principles, I would be interested to hear that. Thank you.
Okay. Professor Shah, I think the first question would probably be the one that you can answer right away. And it was regarding whether any court has held the U.S. responsible for any of these actions that it has been committing with the use of drones. I know that the Peshawar High Court made a judgment, and I don't know, maybe you want to explain that.
Yeah, I mean, that's quickly, it's a very good question, because I think that there's lots of other developments happening in Pakistan and which are being affected by this question. And the role of judiciary, in fact, as you pointed out, there has been a Peshawar High Court judgment that has been very bold in holding both governments, the Pakistani government and the US government, responsible for what is happening in Qatar in terms of immigration, in terms of stopping drones. They've gone as far as, the court has gone as far as saying that when it's taking this matter to the UN, nothing sort of comes out of it, then Pakistan, the government of Pakistan should shoot down these drones. And this is sort of an order given to the executive. Now, subsequently, there are a number of petitions. There's a new petition in the Islamabad High Court on drones. That is, very, very recent. There is also a number of petitions that have been filed with the Supreme Court of Pakistan, but they haven't been taken up by the court, and some of them have been dismissed. The Peshawar High Court judgment, actually the court has gone back to the government very recently and asked for them to implement the judgment. This was very recent, a few months ago. So that in terms of developments within the province, you see developments because historically in this region, it's based on the tribal system where the rest of the federal government, to the extent of the executive, is applicable, but not to the extent of the judicial role. So Qatar residents can't go, technically speaking, legally speaking, to the court. The Peshawar High Court has taken jurisdiction over the matter. What you see now is more Qatar residents want a provincial status given to them and a high court instituted within this region and then integrate Pakistan, this part of Pakistan into the region, and the political parties are also pushing for it so that there can be legal recourse. So that is, at a local level, that is what has been happening. At the international level, Pakistan representative in Geneva has taken the magnitude to give you the counsel. These mechanisms in the UN are slower and they're more facilitated rather than adjudicatory in nature. Of course, the judicial organ, which is the ICJ, no party has taken this matter to the ICJ. So, from an international judicial law perspective, that mechanism hasn't been employed as of yet.
Okay, thank you. In addition, I know that the family of the American-born cleric that was killed in Yemen, I think his son was also killed, has taken legal recourse in the United States judicial system. I don't know the progress of that, but those are examples. The second question was directed at the Secretary General of ALCO. I don't know if he wants to respond or no. Okay. Then Dr. Shah?
Again, Anand's question. Drones as a weapon have been used by US only or by the East against poor, defenseless victims. No other country has used this weapon in a war. If you have war between two equal countries, the use of drones is going to be negligible. Because then both the countries have their air defense systems. These weapons can be attacked, susceptible to cyber interception, and the use may not be as what is being said here. US and Israel are the big industry for weapon systems, and they are making money out of this.
So is the fault with the weapon or with the
number two?
decision maker?
Let me finish off. Number two, accuracy is not of the weapon. There are the failures on the part of person who operates it. I have done the photo intervention in the military for almost 10 years. You can never say with the guarantee that in the ALCO building the Secretary General is sitting or not. Sorry, I am not aiming you. Okay. He can go out in any vehicle, he can go anywhere. Yes, I can say it is an ALCO building. I can say it is a truck. But I cannot say with the guarantee. Yes, as long as your victims are poor, defenseless persons, you can say they are a good weapons. They are not a good replacement for where the pilot has got a brain, he can see and he can cancel the attack. Here you have got a system free at your hand. You can use 16 missiles at one time on one weapon. And if the 4 weapons are there, means 64 missiles you can fire on the person without anybody answering for it. When your pilot's life is in danger, then you realize the reality of battle. And then you are a true soldier. I don't consider I'll call myself a coward if I sit in a computer room and kill somebody 15,000 kilometers away. It is the reality of battle. How can you call yourself a soldier, you kill somebody who is a civilian sitting or whatever may be, and then you claim that you will get a medal for it? It is not what is the quality of a soldier.
Okay. All right. I think we will go Professor Shah. There was one question about your comment on the internationalized, non-international armed conflict, and that this was a distortion of IHL, and they wanted you to expand on that particular topic.
Yeah. Okay, before I do that, one point that I have, you mentioned, I think someone spoke about it, I didn't completely understand the person who talked about it, but I do want to discuss it because it's very related to this last question, and I'll be very brief. And that is the issue of precision. Okay? So let me just quickly sort of explain to you how I understand precision. What I think a lot of people are arguing that it's an accurate, right? Meaning to say that with improving technology, technologically the weapon can hit where it wants to hit, right? That doesn't necessarily mean it's precise, because precision is dependent on intent. It's dependent on the human element. Are you actually, you might kill the person you want to kill, but what if it's the wrong person? When the weapon is accurate, it's not precise, right? The other thing is that drones, because drones is a very cheap way to target, because you have no footprint drones in a lot of developed industrialized countries. And if you're targeting countries that are and that it's going to create a lot of, there would be response, a lot of drones, and then there's this lacuna. So, as a consequence, what I'm trying to say is that there might be not precise. Secondly, but the frequency goes up because there is easily the type of people you want to take out, right? And there might be the right person or the right person. But so because of the frequency going up and because the intent is faulty and it relies on signaturing or parameters that are non-human in nature, it will result in that this weapon being actually not precise as things stand, right? With regards to and I think it's the case. I think most academics agree with that, and I think my colleague also pointed out that most of the people who have been targeted are ending up dying as civilians. I mean, just because you classify civilians as combatants as you define whether IHL as you think, doesn't necessarily mean that you take them out of the civilian category. The international, there are lots of terms that are there. The international, non-international armed conflict. There is term national armed conflict. I think these terms are being generated so that you can go beyond the conventional categories of IHL law. Because you have a non-international armed conflict and a national armed conflict. Come out together because perhaps certain countries feel that they cannot fit the law completely within certain categories. They are trying to reinvent their rights. So in this Hamdan case that I talked about, the U.S. government's argument was exactly this, that this is a transnational armed conflict, and so common Article 3 doesn't apply because common Article 3 only applies in an international armed conflict or a non-international armed conflict. However, I must say, giving credit to the U.S. Supreme Court, they said no. You cannot just take out something completely outside the conflict situation by calling it a new category. This would be not an international armed conflict, but it is an armed conflict. So that, and of a non-international character, which subsequently the U.S. government picked up and argued for. So we have in a non-international armed conflict with terrorists and non-state actors, Taliban in Pakistan, and hence only the basic protection law is applicable, and HR law is not applicable, and national human rights law is not applicable, and that law that relates to combatants in an international armed conflict, like enemy, like combatants of the other state, for example, state forces, their state privileges do not extend to these actors. So in principle, we will apply common Article 3, but we will regardless the argument. But of course, the U.S. judgment made clear that common Article 3 is not just in principle, but in effect, in entirety is applicable on anyone, in any context.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I'll take 3 more questions and then I think we'll close this. Anybody has a question? Yes.
Before I ask this question, I think there's this debate that was just happening. I mean, I didn't catch much of the answer there, but it seems to be generated from an idea of looking drones as a weapon. And I think there's a slight confusion which runs up as to whether a drone should be seen as a weapon delivery system or should drones be seen as a weapon. When it gets seen, I think that's where Sir's question was coming, and I think the response sort of got merged with that. But keeping that aside, I just wanted to ask 2 questions, and it may stem from because I couldn't hear it. I couldn't hear very clearly.
Could you just ask one question because I want others to.
Sure. I mean, I'll just make it very brief. I couldn't very clearly hear what Professor Shah had said. But he did make an interesting point right at the end of his presentation where he said that the legality of drones can be questioned because the victims don't have a possibility of defending themselves. Now I'm not sure if where the source of this law is or rule is, or did I hear it correctly, I'm not sure. But this seems to me a slightly problematic rule because the moment they can defend themselves, because that's what I sort of gathered from the discussion, that it suddenly becomes legal. So I'm not very clear as to what this idea was. Secondly, he did raise a rather interesting idea on qualitative and quantitative distinction. Again, I'm not very clear how that works, but to me, if there is such a debate coming up, then is there a necessity to introduce into humanitarian law an idea of ought to have known principle? That is, anyone who's using such a system or a weapon ought to have known what the consequences would have been, and therefore being liable to it, an idea which we use in criminal law. So that's about it.
All right. Thanks. Anybody else?
I have an observation, but you would allow it.
Just question.
I have a question related to the ecocides and the drones.
The
Like
what?
ecocides, when the whole ecosystem is destroyed due to how drones are responsible are the as what happened in the Vietnam War, and this term was coined. So this is my question to Professor Jha. And what happened to the environmental refugees in these cases? So what is your take on it, sir? Thank you.
Okay, I think we'll close the questions there. Um, Professor Shah, the first question is your notion that these victims cannot defend themselves. However, what if these victims could defend themselves? Would the drones be legal then?
I think that's a very good question, because I think that it's not, I mean, that is one aspect of what I was discussing, the inability to defend yourself. But that also links to the actual weapons being used. So, for example, if you can defend yourself against chemical weapons, doesn't necessarily make the weapon itself legal, right? So, the point is that with improving technology, I mean, I think this symmetry will remain. I think my colleague pointed out that it's also when you will use drones, right? If you know that you can defend yourself, then you will not yet use drones, because actually drones are not very good with situational awareness. I think someone pointed out, I couldn't hear it completely, that you say you have time and all of that stuff, right? And the thing is that there's a pilot in the plane. So there is a three-dimensional sort of situational awareness. It's very easy to shoot down a drone. So hence it affects their decision-making also. So I mean, it goes back to the point of them being more accurate even. I would even question that, because if the computer screen going somewhere and you don't have a head there looking around in the same way as you can sort of make these decisions. And I think attached to this point, that this issue of, that you cannot defend yourself, is also this point that I think someone pointed out quite interestingly, that the drones, because there are no boots on the ground, there is no capacity and ability to surrender. So what does that do to us using force? This again links to your question about the legality of the weapon itself. If you know that you cannot take prisoners,
It's gone on. Okay. Well,
in the meantime, can anyone who knows what's the source of this particular rule, where is this rule derived from, that inability to defend makes it illegal?
well, I don't think that, I don't really agree with that completely, because I think IHL allows you to kill as many of the enemy as necessary in order to get them to stop fighting, to surrender. So whether or not these enemy have the ability to defend themselves, to me, does not come into play. So that's one point that I would make. Do you want to take the ecosystem question?
Ecocide will not be caused by use of drone.
Yeah.
They are a very small weapon compared to causing ecocide. And second, your environmental refugee, when you have got conscience of refugee law, we'll come and discuss that.
So if I may, in terms of quantitative and qualitative is the number of troops you're killing. Qualitative is the level of leadership that you're killing. So the head of an armed group, qualitative, is bigger than, say, 10 soldiers or 10 private soldiers. Yes?
I'm sorry, that's precisely what I was thinking, but I don't think he explained it that way. He explained it in terms of quantitative would be the number that is killed, qualitative was the kind of damage it was inflicting. And that's the reason why, and that's why he said that a drone can never...
No, I don't think it's a drone he was talking about. He was talking about automation of the drones, where the decision making would be left to the drones. So how do you put these parameters within the logic of the machine to make these decisions? And I think what he was arguing was that it's only humans that can make these decisions, and it would be difficult to give this ability to the machines. But this technology is 10, 15, 20 years in the future. I don't think that is possible now. Anyway, I think we're over time, and I'd just like to thank our speakers for being very forthright in their views and also answering the questions. I think we covered a great deal here. There's a lot I said. If you want to learn more, you can read the book. There's also a lot of references in the book if you want further knowledge on particular subjects that we touched upon. For my part, thank you for listening and participating, and have a good evening.
Causing some noise.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a short tea break of 15 minutes. After that, we'll assemble here again for the last session of today. Thank you.
Sorry, sir, I cannot. But the UN resolution.
So for Alco Library, I want a copy of it.
Sorry, come again? I have
Please take it. It's an delicate moment, so I already have
I'm sure yours is more comprehensive. Thank you very much.
But it will take.
Exactly. Yes. One message.
I think I should give her the map. Your presentation was really excellent. Very. I'll agree. So please, you tell me from where is your book available?
I did have to say.
Thank you so much.
Library has no picture.
Yes. By the knowledge contained in the book. Thank you so much. Please come. Please. Okay.
so a lot of because if it's bottom line is if it's really on the line and sort of raises terrible doctrinal issues, we don't prosecute it. So simple. So yeah, but anyway, how about you? Are you presenting today as well?
No, my process.
Oh, very good.
So we just listen.
So, Prof, thank you very much for joining us.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Good to see you.
I'm sure I'll advance the sum total of human knowledge.
I'm sure you would.